Okay, let's go over here. Alrighty, y'all. Did anybody need a paper copy of the notes that did not pick it up already? All good, right? Let me get attendance. Let's see. Boys, hash. We got, okay, that child's not here. And Megan's online. Devin. Nathan's not here. Chloe, Brady, Jonathan, Fernando, Ty, Ryan, Nathaniel, Aiden, Jonathan. James is not here. Alrighty, y'all. Boys, for this opener, we just talked about masses. You guys just had a test Friday. If you were not here Friday, you did miss your test. It is actually open for those of you who need to take it, but I will warn you, it's got a 45-minute time limit on it, and if you open it and decide not to do it, you're going to get everything wrong. I've had one person do that was remote. But for this opener, from what we learned in the last unit, besides the temperature, what's the difference between a warm air mass and a cold air mass?
Pressure.
Okay, well, you're right. What's the difference in their pressure?
Low.
Which is which? Cold is high pressure and hot is low pressure. That is correct. So we're taking that and we're going to be using that concept to be able to talk about the 4 major types of fronts and the 5 major types of air masses. There are a couple of images that are already in Canvas on your paper. Unfortunately, if you have the one that's up here, it's in black and white, but they're in color that are on the Canvas paper. Okay, so an air mass is they like to use the term parcel. It's a body of air, it's like a bubble of air that has similar properties. Those properties being the humidity, the temperature, and the pressure. And you have 2 major places where an air mass can form. They either form over lands, which is a continent, hence continental, or they form over water, which is marine, hence the phrase, well, it's just marine, it's ocean. If they form over water, they tend to have more moisture. If they form over land, they tend to have less moisture. And we're going to specifically talk about the northern hemisphere. You have to understand in the southern hemisphere, everything is essentially reversed, including the direction that storms move. We're going to do fronts today. Now, I had the question, what about seniors tomorrow? Seniors are supposed to stay remote all day long, unless if you're actually taking the SAT, which I don't think most of you are, but SAT. Some of my remote students this morning were like, well, I'm supposed to take it. And I was like, well, did you sign up for it? And they go, I didn't know I was supposed to sign up for it. That's an issue with counselors. I had one student get a little upset, and I was like, all I can tell you is your counselor should have taken care of that. And if the counselor's not doing it, then you should go and talk to your assistant principal and say that. I think it's too late. And then I also had the question, what happens if we signed up for it and then now we're on quarantine because of COVID? That I do not know the answer to. I don't think you can do SAT and PSAT from home. I don't think they let you do that. So that's a counselor question. I don't know. So if it's warm or cold, depends on where it forms. As far as, is it closer to the equator? If it's closer to the equator, it's going to tend to be warmer. If it's closer to the poles, then it's going to tend to be colder. And I actually have a picture that's embedded in Canvas. I don't think it's the next slide. I think it's the slide after that. That shows you this shorthand that they use for the type of air mass. Anybody still need this one? No. So your 4 types. Everything on this slide is a capital letter. Everything on the next slide is a lowercase letter. If it forms towards the equator, which is south of us, those are considered tropics. Those tend to be warmer. If it starts coming from the north of us towards the North Pole, then those tend to be polar. Those are polar. We don't get Arctic blasts this far south very often at all. Okay, but specifically, especially if you ever visit the northern part of the States or if you go to Canada, they get Arctic blasts, which is a capital A. Once again, these are all capital letters on this page. So if it comes from the south of us, which is towards the equator, those are tropical masses. They tend to be warmer. If it comes from the north of us, those are polar masses. They tend to be polar. And if it comes from way up in the Arctic, those are Arctic blasts. I had never heard the term polar vortex before about maybe 3 years ago. All of a sudden, they started calling cold fronts a polar vortex. It's a cold front. It comes from the poles. If it's a strong enough blast from the Arctic, then that is an Arctic blast. But we just, like I said, we don't get them very often down here, not this far south. No, not with this page. Yes. You don't have your phone with it?
Yeah.
Maritime. This is going to be a air mass that forms over some body of water. Doesn't matter which ocean it is. They tend to have more moisture in them. If it forms over land, they have less moisture. Those come from a continent. Those are continental. Both of these are lowercase letters. The lowercase letter goes first. The capital letter goes second. Just where does it form from? Where I moved from, we had to deal with your maritime tropicals all the time. Coming up off the Gulf Coast. Bringing all these hurricanes towards us because we had I think it's still going on. I don't know if there's anything in the Gulf right now, but we had a very active year this year. Something like 10 storms, mini storms hit. Something 25 or 26 of them. Let's see if there's anything out there. Let's see here. I don't think there is. Where is the record? Images. I know, I keep telling it to get colder and it's, I don't know if my air is just not functioning. This is going to be that infamous 1 degree. It's going to make 10 degrees colder in here. Yay, you rather be 10 degrees colder in here? Yeah. You guys have this image? And it shows your 5 major types of masses from, like I said, we're focusing on us since we live in North America, but your oceans are, and they can't really see how I'm pointing on the screen, but your ocean water or your maritime, those are the M subscript. And then if it's from the south, those are all tropical. If it's from the south, but it forms over land, that's continental. If it's from the north, over water, it's marine polar. If it's from the north, like I said, the Arctic blasts don't really hit us down here, but if it is Arctic, it's a capital A. If it's polar, it's a capital Q. Fronts. Your air comes in contact with each other, but they don't mix. I have no idea why that's there. Oh, there is something out there, but it's not like a storm. Weird, I'm seeing one disturbance out in the Gulf. You have warm air that comes in contact with cold air, whether the warm air is coming in like towards the cold or the cold is coming towards the warm. You have 2 different masses that come in contact with each other. They do not mix. The cold air burrows underneath the warm air, lifts the warm air up. Only if there's enough moisture in the warm air do you have precipitation. There's not enough moisture, you get clouds, but you don't get any rain, sleet, snow, hail, anything like that. And they stay apart from each other because of their different densities, their different pressures. Your warm air is lower pressure, it goes up. It does. It does. But once it goes high enough, right, but once it goes high enough, since there's less pressure, it wants to cool off, it starts to constrict, which is what squeezes the water out of the warm air. You have different type of precipitation. The worst comes to worst, it's a loose color. If there's enough moisture, it keeps condensing and condensing, and then you have some type of snow, sleet, rain, something. What brings the rain is the warm mass, not the cold mass. The cold mass doesn't actually produce the rain, but the cold air does help lift the warm air in order for rain to come out. All right, 4 types of fronts. You probably, if anything, have heard cold front and warm front.
Yes.
Okay, which you probably have never heard of are occluded fronts. Stationary fronts are pretty self-explanatory, but I also gave you these images in Canvas. Warm fronts on a weather map are represented with a red line with half circles. Cold fronts are represented by a line with blue triangles on them. Occluded fronts flip-flop them, but they're all pointing the same way and they're purple. Stationary fronts flip-flop them, but they keep their colors and they're always going to point opposite directions of each other. You guys have these images in Canvas. Sorry if you have the paper version, they're in black and white. We don't have color printers for you guys that do mass copies. Cold fronts first. So to take you 2 slides for each type of front. Some of this stuff is repetitious just because it's the same things happen. Cold fronts are the fastest of all the fronts. If you could rank them, they're going to produce the highest winds, and they're also going to produce the worst weather, is when a cold front moves in. Once again, it's a blue line. It has blue triangles, and the triangles are pointing in the direction that the air is moving into. So that means that the cold air is going this way, and your colder temperatures are on the line side. The warmer temperatures that it's actually pushing up into the atmosphere are going to be on the point of the triangle side. Once again, if the warm air that it's moving into has enough moisture, then you have precipitation. If there's not enough moisture, you will at least produce clouds. So like the front that came through last night, because it was 20 degrees cooler this morning than it was yesterday morning, we didn't have rain. Yes, there was a little bit of condensation on the ground because of the dew point, but we did have clouds. We had a cold front come through. The sky is clear today. The clouds that we have are much higher in altitude. They're cirrus clouds. That is very, very typical of a cold front. It doesn't mean it has to rain. It depends on the air that it's coming in contact with. Once again, the warm air is what causes the rain or the snow or whatever precipitation that technically it's not cold air. And then on the next slide, I got the rest of it. You do have faster moving air that's pushing into a slower, warmer mass. Once again, cold fronts tend to move the fastest of all of the fronts. Not every single time. That is the general rule of thumb. Your denser cold air slides underneath your warm air, lifts it. If that warm air has enough moisture, as it cools off and it starts to condense, it will squeeze the water out. Now, if there's not enough moisture, like I said, it does, but it, you know, if you're still out there, you're out there early. It makes your higher level clouds, your cirrus clouds, well, there's a couple of them out there, which are suspended ice particles. If there's enough moisture in the air, then you're going to get your thunderstorms, which are cumulonimbus. We'll talk more about storms. I keep saying tomorrow, Thursday. This week is so messed up. There was no Monday, and now tomorrow is all kinds of jacked up because of PSATs, which I won't see my seniors. So I'm sort of treating tomorrow as a makeup day. If I had people that were absent, I had some people that missed tests. Can't remember off the top of my head if it was anybody in here. Not here. I need to check that person online. That person knows she needs to take the test. Caleb, unless if you took it recently, I think you missed the test. Gregory missed the test. Megan missed the test. If you go to take the test, there is a 45-minute time limit on it. don't answer them in 45 minutes, they're gonna mark everything else wrong. We're all done with this part. Yes? Cold fronts do move the fastest. They're going to cause your more severe weather. Yes, warm fronts can cause rain too when they come in. But your wilder weather is going to be in the spring more often than not. When you have the stronger interactions between cold and warm fronts, the bigger the temperature difference, the stronger the storm. We'll talk more about storms tomorrow. Thunderstorms and tornadoes and hurricanes and all that fun stuff. But when you do have a cold front come through, your skies will be clear once it's done raining, if it's going to rain. And yes, your temperature of your air in general will be colder. It doesn't mean it's going to last. It was what, like 100 degrees yesterday? I think it's supposed to be 90 something tomorrow. This little cold front that we're going through is only lasting like 2 days.
Did you say it was 100 yesterday?
It was like 100 degrees yesterday. It was like 97 degrees. It was hot. Yeah, it was 47 this morning. It says it's going to be 90 tomorrow, and then it's going to go back down to 73 Thursday. So yay! We all get to have allergies all week long. Great. If you're like me and your back feels like it's being squeezed, you're allergic to cedar too. Cedar is in full bloom right now.
Look at the trees, like, you live a bunch of crap.
Cedar. Yeah, it's cedar. In fact, Austin, the 1 year I lived in Austin, there's cedar everywhere, and you can actually see it from like space. It looks like smoke. Because all the cedar trees, they all put out their pollen all at the same time. I can feel it right here in my upper lungs. It's called cedar fever. It's not fun. Almost flu-like, but you're not sick. It's just the way it makes you feel. It's horrible. Alrighty, are we done with this one?
Yeah.
Yes? Okay. Warm fronts. This one's not going to be right, but I haven't fixed it. Finally, it kicked on. I don't know what's going on with there. Warm fronts, you have a warmer air mass that's going to come in contact with the cooler air mass. Like I said, if the mass is moving, cold fronts move the fastest. After that will be warm fronts. This one is a warm body that is coming in contact with a cold body. It's the opposite of the one that we did before. We got a red line with half circles on it. The circles are pointing to the direction that the air is going to. So once again, the air is going that way. So we've got warmer air on the line side, and we have colder air on the shape side, just like the cold front, but the wording was opposite. It's going in the direction that the shapes are. And this is on every single one of the fronts. Only if there's enough moisture in the warm air mass do you have precipitation. Which is what will be happening this evening. So we can see what it says. Let's see. 70, 61, 57. Yeah, the wind's going to pick up around noon tomorrow. That's when the front's coming through. Starting to. I know it was windy last night when I couldn't sleep. And the next one, so still warm fronts. If you have enough moisture, you're going to have showers, you're going to have, well, snow. Once again, the warm front is what brings the precipitation. It's not the cold front. So in order to have snow, you have to have a warm front come through the area. It just has to be cold enough outside for that warm front to produce snow. If the air is dry enough, you're just going to have clouds. There's one more slide. Let's see, that's included. Yes. So, like I said, cold fronts are the fastest movers, just in general, as they're going across the United States. Yes, warm fronts are still moving, but it's not as fast as a moving cold front. Polluted fronts also are moving. They're even slower, and then stationary fronts, if they are moving at all, will be the slowest of them. Stationary fronts like to bring fog in the morning. Let me check online and see if anybody else came on. Oh, all right. I see Misty. Misty's here. Ooh. I have no idea what I just clicked on. That was weird. Okay. Caleb, Carla, Megan, Misty, Nathaniel, Nick. I see Nick. So I'm missing that one, that one, that one. Occluded fronts. You probably have never heard of this phrase before. This is what happens when you've got two cold fronts that come in on either side of a warm front, and they literally trap it. It goes up, and then it's suspended, and it's stuck like in a pocket above these two cold masses. It does get colder at ground level. Once again, the warm air has to have enough moisture in order for us to have precipitation. You have the shapes on the same side of the line. They're pointing in the direction that the air is moving, but they blend the colors in red, blue, and purple, which are going to alternate the triangle and the half circle. Fix this one. They do not move as fast as a warm front, but they are still moving. I think I put a picture of it too. Literally is suspended, it is stuck. The term is called occluded. It's trapped in between these two cold fronts. You're going to get, this happens a lot in Seattle. It's very overcast in Seattle all the time. That's why the suicide rate is so high there, because they don't have the amount of sunlight. I'm not joking. They don't have enough sunlight for the body to be able to produce the vitamin D, and it depresses you. Then literally is why the suicide rate is so high in Seattle.
That's why the music's so good.
I don't know about that, but it's because people don't have as much sunlight, and sunlight makes you happier.
What do you think your mom is?
I remember when they were still around before he shot himself. Everybody knows he didn't shoot himself.
Did you know that Obama lasted longer? Those two lasted 5 years. Obama lasted.
No, I remember the crunch days. I was in middle school when that was going on. I remember Nirvana.
Nirvana lasted longer than what? God bless the Confederacy. But I guess that means the life lasted longer than
All right, so like I said, and the same thing is happening. They have different terms, they have different colors, and they have well, some of them they have different colors. But all the way through included, they're still pointing, the shapes are pointing in the direction that the actual mass is flowing. It will become colder at ground level because you have cold air that has removed the warmer air mass. The warm air is still there. You will get large cloud banks with this particular type of front. The next one is the last of the fronts. And I should be able to get to the image. I didn't get to the image in sixth period.
Is it like drive car?
Ready for the last one?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, all right, stationary fronts. They don't have to be completely at a standstill, but they can be completely and totally frozen. That's what's going to create your heavier fog banks more than anything else in the morning. You've got interchanging circles and triangles, but they keep their color. They're not purple. They're pointing opposite directions from each other. And your triangles will be pointing away from your cold mass. That's the way the cold air wants to go. Your circles are going to be pointing away from the warm air mass. That's the way the warm air wants to flow, and they're literally at a stalemate. These will be your very overcast days for long periods of time. These will be what are going on if you've got thick fog early in the morning. You see these more towards the coast. Your sea breezes and your continental breezes are interfering with each other. They don't always stall out, but they can. One more slide, and then we're going to take a look at the weather map from probably before when y'all were born. This is like 2001. Once again, your warm air has to have enough moisture in order to have precipitation. If you do have a stall, these are long periods of time with overcast clouds, normally without precipitation. I don't know which front's going to end up winning, but eventually either the cold or the warm air mass is going to become more powerful and it will end up moving with the direction of that particular parcel of air or mass of air. The only thing I have left is this weather map. Now, most of your precipitation is going to be around your cold front, and I know they can't see me pointing at the screen, but I've got a cold front here, I've got a cold front here, and I've got a cold front here. This one down here is stationary, and then the one up here on the left, which is hard to see, this is occluded, and you do have one warm front here. Like I said, warm fronts bring snow. It doesn't have to be a cold front in order to have any type of precipitation. And if you do not notice, the white on the map is snow and the green on the map is rain. And then we've got areas of high pressure and we have an area of low pressure. And we'll talk more about that tomorrow when we do storms. Let me stop this. Stop recording.